$5 used to get you an entire sandwich at a popular fast food chain here in America. In America? Is that... It's probably around the world now. It's probably all over the place. I think it's all over the place. It used to be $5.
Yes, but now $5 will buy you a Gatorade or possibly a single Lego block or one of these Magic the Gathering cards that we're about to talk to you about.
Enormous thanks to all of the heroes supporting us over on Patreon. You're all worthy of lifting Mjolnir. You are all individually the Stan Lee cameo in our lives. J-Controller Magic is brought to you by Card Conduit, the best place to sell your cards quickly and easily on the internet. Take that stack of cards you're not using that are worth more than 50 cents, fire them over to Card Conduit, and they're gonna send you cash for them. It's that simple. Also, big shout out to TCG Player, the online store official of J-Controller Magic. When you check out over at TCG Player, use our link before you do. It'll give us a little kickback at no extra cost to you.
And Dragon Shield, the best way to protect your cards. And Dragon Shield does not just sell card sleeves, they sell all sorts of different products to protect your MTG singles. Use our link to shop the best sleeves in the Magic multiverse.
Every card you're going to see on this list is around $5. Some of our choices get down into the 4s, some of our choices get up into the 6s, but it's around that value. And we're not saying that the card that we're going to show on screen is specifically the cheapest version of that card that you can buy. These are cards that we think are interesting at $5, and a lot of them are alternate treatments with cheaper copies that you can also go pick up. Jake, we're starting here with the 2x2 Assassin's Trophy.
Yeah, this is the etched version. It's just really good removal. Don't really need to talk too deeply about why Assassin's Trophy is good. And yes, you can buy the Assassin's Creed version for like $2. It's not etched, it's in Assassin's Creed art. We've noticed this kind of like when a set has a like breaking news, for example, from Thunder Junction. You'll get variants of cards that are just a fraction of the price. And this card is around $5, but yeah, you could find the Assassin's Creed version of it for like $2 or less, probably.
Etched versions look really cool. Here's a base copy, though, of a ridiculously powerful card from the past. Doesn't have as much feature nowadays, but still really strong.
Yeah, it's wild to me because this one is like in my mind, $50 or $60 card from when Tron was just a menace and modern, and you needed multiple copies of this. And now here we are, Karn liberated, $5. Pretty wild.
Yep. Go restart the game with your ultimate on a Planeswalker and piss everybody off. Y'all, Celestine, the Living Saint, provides you the life that you need to gain to be able to return things. And returning any creature mana value 3 or less just on its own is going to provide you a ton of utility. I've played Celestine in quite a few different builds now. Different ways to grow her power can even make her more valuable to you.
Wow.
But honestly, just like 2 more power, returning 5 or less is hitting most creatures in your deck.
God, dude, this card is great. Warhammer has some serious like sleepers in it. I was just not even aware of this card.
Well, this one actually was huge. This one was like legacy discussion, $30, $40 card. Came way down because that set is become just widely available and still is to this day. But I will say, I'll point out, it's a legendary from a singular IP, and so they would need to do some tap dancing potentially to get a reprint of this one. I don't say let's go buy 1,000 copies, but at $5, mini life-linking Sun Titan, I'm kind of into it.
Yeah, I mean, just put that into green-white counters and go crazy.
Right.
Next up, we have Season of Gathering, 2 green, 4 other, and we have this big sorcery that just recently came out in Bloomborough. It has a lot of different modes. A lot of people have been really hyped on this one. The black one is good as well.
Yep.
You choose up to 5 paws worth of modes. We have counter synergy here. We have stuff that's destroying artifacts or enchantments, and then we have draw on this. I mean, really, what's not to like? In green, you can get to 6 mana very quickly, very easily. Bloomborough a couple months back now at this point, and so we're seeing a lot of the cards start to settle out. But if this was one that you were like, wow, when it first came out, you know, $10 or $15 card, we're looking at a much more reasonable $5 on this.
I wasn't really high on this one, but I've got Rishkar's expertise in quite a few decks. And this card provides that card draw that really drives how strong Rishkar's expertise is. Rishkar's does let you then get a free 5 mana or less thing, but we're trading that piece off for the potential of an overrun effect with the +1/+1 counter on a creature, and it gains vigilance and trample. You can put that on a few creatures in a pinch. Either artifact or enchantment, just for 2 paws, you're getting all of them, y'all. All of them. So you just drop 2 in there, and then it's like, do I have a creature to draw a lot of cards off of, or do I just want to grow the creature I have and also make them vigilant and trampling this turn? There's a lot of value here, and Season of Gathering has slowly been replacing Rishkar's expertise in my decks. We'll see where this card goes over time, but yeah, for the showcase version here that looks very sweet, the $5 price range is really low risk as far as I'm concerned.
And we just put it in a video, but we're doing it again. Recruiter of the Guard. It's really hard to be like, here's some great cards around a $5 pickup, and then ignore this card because we just put it in a video. But we're talking about it again. This is a card that recently hit an all-time low, which is why it was in a recent video where we covered all-time lows. But Recruiter of the Guard is just one of these cards where if you take some time, look it up on MTG Stocks. Shout out to MTG Stocks. Really great website for tracking the long-term price of your cards. You can head over there and you could see where Recruiter was before it started getting reprinted. We did have it get reprinted in, I believe, Thunder Junction Special Guest. Is that where it popped up? I'm pretty sure it was, but it is very recent. One of the last 2 sets, which has brought this down to a $5 range. There's just a lot of different versions of it, and they're all right around the same price because it's just a very good card.
Oh yeah, it's crazy good. As is Colossus Hammer. This card features in constructed decks, but I really love it in equipment decks too, because it's a 1 mana equipment that typically in your equipment deck, you're going to have multiple ways to attach things for free. And so you're not going to worry about that equip of 8. It's going to give a creature 10/10, which is insane. These LCC, these were from Lost Caverns of Ixalan. They were technically in the Commander set, but they were sort of like a specially version thing that were only in certain boosters. They weren't actually in the Commander decks. But I've been eyeing these a lot recently. Colossus Hammer, Whisper Silk Cloak is on here. Some of the other like main utility providing artifacts are in this set. Colossus Hammer is just a good example of, don't let these get too far away without checking and seeing if you need any of these specific treatments.
What do you think? Does it get reskinned as Molinar for Marvel?
All the Marvel, bro. There's going to be so many reskins.
You think it gets reskinned?
Absolutely, it does. Here, I just mentioned it. Whisper Silk Cloak, also around that $5 range. You can see the aesthetic of these. I really like it. As far as me, I love the Borderless Showcase frameless look here. And so these are ones that I've just been drawn to because I've recently built them into decks, and I keep coming back and just going, this is just the one I like the most, even more than that like Da Vinci one that came out with the Assassin's Creed layer. I prefer this art because this art just looks cooler to me. The others got an aesthetic, but I like that better.
Whisper Silk Cloak is a really cool old boomer MTG card. It's withstood the test of time.
Yep.
This was one that I was pretty surprised. This one you can actually find for around like $2, but we put it on the list just because it's so freaking inexpensive. Mana Reflection, 2 green, 4 other. If you tap a permanent for mana, it produces twice as much of that mana instead. And it does say you, so it's not for the table. This isn't like one of those group hug cards. This is just like if we want to go real big mana, we got Mana Reflection. This card is going to absolutely be a lightning rod for stuff like Season of Gathering. You know, like if people are like, oh, you got that online? Well, now you're the arch enemy and it's time for you to die. But yeah, this card, it was recently printed in a Commander deck, so we have even more of a drop in price on just this big green card.
Relevant that it says permanent for mana too, by the way, not just lands. All of your rocks are doubled just from this enchantment. Pretty sick overall.
Dude, Force of Vigor, man. The breaking news brought us a reprint of this in Thunder Junction, and it has taken this card that until the reprint was like $35 just because it was free. And honestly, it's an extremely good spell. Even if you can't cast it for free and you have to do it at instant speed for 4 mana, I really don't hate it. It is going to clean up 2 pesky things on the board down to around that $5 range. And if you've been sleeping on this one, well, here it is. Jake and Joel reminding you.
Pretty sweet Randy Vargas art too, by the way. Grab you a copy and go take it to Vargas's table at the con. He goes to a lot of them. Sapphire Medallion. All the medallions. This is a call out. If you need the medallions, these have been hammered over the last 2 years.
Here's the blue one.
2 major
it's like the
reprints.
Most expensive and jet.
Right.
And if Sapphire's 5, they're probably all 5 or less.
Correct. So. You've got special versions that are just a couple more dollars. You've got these. You've got just across the 2 years with Commander Masters and then Modern Horizons 3. These are all just slammed. Get them for your decks. They're good. They're great. In some builds. You don't need them in some builds, but having them is never a bad thing. As is a copy of Colossus. Man, talk about a card from our past that has just withstood the test of time and keeps coming back.
Colossus is one of these vampires that had applicability in a lot of constructed decks, and I think it's just in some ways kind of been like maybe powered down, or just with the format shifting and meta shifting, the card is kind of, fallen out of that, $20 to $25 range.
Sure.
But now we're looking at a card that in Commander is like really good, and it's around like $4 or $5 now for this card. It just shows how, in Magic, card prices, they ebb and flow with the meta, with reprints. We talk about this all the time in our videos, but when cards hit all-time highs, if it's not reserve list, like that's a lot of the time a really good indicator, but indicator to sell.
Right.
But when you have a card like this that's like, oh, it was $20, now it's down to $5, it enters into that kind of like low risk pickup range, which is why we're alerting you to it today.
I want to talk to the newer players for just a second about why particularly this card is good. It has to do with a card called Leyline of the Void, which this has a similar effect. If a non-token creature an opponent controls would die, instead exile it and you put a 2/2 black zombie creature token onto the battlefield. So already pretty sweet. When their things die, you get a 2/2, but that has more implications than you even know. If it would die, instead exile it, turns off every single card that says when something dies, when this dies, when this goes to the graveyard, when this leaves the battlefield. Leaves the battlefield actually would still work. But the point is, replacing death as an effect has so many implications that can really make your opponent's game plan go sour. So just wanted to specifically talk about this one for a second, because I think some people would look at this and go, it's mid, but don't really understand all the implications of a Leyline of the Void type effect.
Oh, 100%. Like in one of my favorite decks, I like to sacrifice things and get them back from the graveyard. This turns that off. Now, it doesn't have any sort of protection built into it. There is no ward on this. There is no hexproof or shroud or anything like that. You can kill it with removal, burn it with fire, but that's Magic.
Yeah, that's
stuff dies to removal, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's also relevant for cards like Blood Artist. Says whenever a creature you control dies, target opponent loses a life. That doesn't happen anymore because it doesn't see anything die, because that effect got replaced. So I want to talk about the replacement of Nissa here with a bunch of metal by the Phyrexians. This one's down to $5. There's a Phyrexian copy if you don't want to be able to read it, but you're big into theme. That's around the same or less. But this card, y'all, is pretty insane. It scales really well with a game of Commander. I wouldn't typically recommend a Planeswalker for Commander, but the +1 creates an XX where X is her loyalty. That's a pretty big one. Even if you just pay the 5 and 2, her loyalty is going to be 4 after you activate this, and that'll be a 4/4 with Nissa still on the battlefield. -1 to destroy things, and then if you can pay the full cost to get her at 7 loyalty as she enters, being able to give all of your creatures immediately +1/+1 for each force you control and trample can just be a game ender. So I love how this scales up from strong creature provider, mid-game utility removal that has to be answered somehow. So it's like pseudo life gain if they attack it down, and then potentially a finisher as well. I think it's a lot for $5.
Yeah, there is a lot going on with this. Being able to, in big green, you can very easily just cast this without having to pay any of the Phyrexian pips, and then you're just making freaking 8/8s. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, big fan of Ascended Animist. I think that she's a strong one going forward.
Yeah, and then Tainted Remedy is on here, and this is a card that is kind of, it's not on that same tier as like Sanguine Bond and Exquisite Blood, but it is one of these cards that, like, if you're in a meta that has a lot of life gain, this card is around like $3, so it's even less than what our target price is here for the video, around the $5 range. We just have one of these cards. If an opponent would gain life, that player loses that much life instead. I think this card is more of a meta call. Like, if you're playing against a ton of life gain, then you probably want this in your deck just because it's an enchantment, so it's sticky. It's difficult to get removed.
There's also some decks that mess around in Abzan colors, maybe 2, maybe all 3 of those colors, that each player gains 20 life would be an easy spell to pull off. And if you had something like this on the battlefield, you're essentially turning your board gains life into an exsanguinate while you gain life kind of thing. So it's got some, it is mostly a meta call, I agree with you, but I think that it's got some applicability outside of that. Wanted to talk about Selfless Spirit. This is the first of 2 reward promos that I put on the list here.
Ooh, Justine Jones?
Yeah, this is Justine Jones art from 2 years ago. This was for a regional championship. This was a top performer promo, and then toppest performing promo. Toppest performing players got the foil version of this promo. Non-foil, Selfless Spirit, Justine Jones, Premier Play promo is a $5 card right now, y'all.
Wow.
Wild applicability in so many different types of decks. Top 100 commander card, and it's got Justine Jones art on it. I was really surprised actually to see that this was a $5 card, because it feels like a $10 or $15 card to me.
I'm pretty surprised as well. I run this in Carador, and I love this card so much. It's so pesky. It ends up being like a flag bearer a lot of the time.
Exactly.
Like, people are like, oh God, it's a Selfless Spirit. It kind of falls into the ranks of stuff like Mother of Runes and Giver of Runes, that kind of thing. But
must eat the removal before you can do anything else.
You have to. And then what's going to end up happening is, as they remove it, you just go, okay, I'll sacrifice it, give the team indestructible this turn.
Right.
And then they're like, okay, at least I dealt with it, In Carador, I like to get it back again and again and again and
exactly.
again.
Right, I mean,
recurring play it again from the yard.
Spirit and Cleric, relevant creature types for Kindred decks. Just a creature go wide, creature go tall. Either of those. Recursion, like you're saying, like I said, just so much applicability with this card. To have a Justine Jones version out there that I wasn't really even aware of. I knew it existed, but I didn't know, how it was obtainable or how much it was. This is one of the ones off the list today where I don't personally own it, and I'm definitely going to be finding a copy for myself.
I'm interested in how much the foil is. I imagine pretty pricey, right?
I would imagine. I think those were pretty top finisher cards, but who knows?
Yeah.
Jake,
Phyrexian Beast Within.
Yeah, okay. Exactly. It's because the fact that you can look at this card and go, oh, that's Beast Within, that I even put this on the list. It's a $5 promo. If you got a Phyrexian deck and you really need all the Phyrexian text so that nobody knows what your cards say, really, you can go and get this for $5 right now. I thought it was a pretty good price to further, pimp out the all Phyrexian text gimmick deck.
Yeah, for cards like this, they really do need to be kind of like iconic cards, right?
Yes.
Because like this, I would take over any of the Praetors in Phyrexian text.
Even the first main ones that I pretty much know, I still am like, can we just see the actual wording?
Right. It's like you almost need one of those altar sleeves where like you put the sleeve over it and it has all of the words on it so that you understand what's going on the card. This to me is a fun pickup because it's an iconic card in a specific aesthetic. The more complicated cards get, the more that people don't recognize them.
Yeah.
If you have a card that is in a different language and people have to start pulling out their phones at the table, that becomes kind of asinine. But with Beast Within, it's iconic enough that it's probably worth a pickup.
Yeah. If it gets too complicated, that means it's really expensive and nobody will be able to afford it.
That's right. Dan Flashes.
There was a lot of hype around the Jurassic Park cards, and this was, in a time where we weren't 100% sure of how these, infusions of other universes beyonds were going to go within sets, how rare they were going to be, how obtainable. Indominus Rex base copy now down to $5. I've played against this deck multiple times. It is very strong. It is very specific. From what I've seen, not a ton of... This is just one of those decks, right, where there's like a pool of 150 cards that you should be considering, and within those, there's 70 or something that definitely need to go in the deck, and there's, the other 10 where it's you got... And please tell me, Indominus Rex players, if you got a different way to build this, or if I'm understating the width of the builds for this, please let me know down in the comments. But at $5, very pick-upable now to go get yourself a copy of the Dino if you want to go Word Soup Kindred.
Yeah, you said there was a lot of buzz around the dinosaurs. I think what you meant was there was a lot of mana crypt around the dinosaurs in that set.
Yes.
Which brought a lot of eyes to it. No, Jurassic Park is really cool. I love Jurassic Park. Jurassic Park is awesome.
Yeah.
This is kind of like Soul Flayer the dinosaur. Right. Is pretty much how I feel about it.
The Commander.
Soul Flayer
the Commander.
Yeah, Soul Flayer the Commander. It's an interesting dinosaur mutant. I think aesthetically and lore-wise, it kind of fits. In the movie, this thing was kind of just like a hodgepodge of shit that they stuck together to make like the most alpha dinosaur that exists.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what we're working with here.
You knew that Indominus Rex was the most alpha dinosaur because it would go around negging all the female dinosaurs, but it would make them want him even harder. So you know what it is. Real quick, by the way, I will say they did have a lot of hype because of the mana crypt, but I think your eyes would pop if you saw the prices of any of the Jurassic Park emblem versions of these. That was like higher tier, low percentage open of this entire set of cards.
Foil of the set.
Exactly. Yeah. They had the giant Jurassic Park, you've seen it, the T-Rex skeleton logo emblazoned across the entire card. Those cards are quite expensive, especially compared to their base copies.
People like rare.
Yeah.
They like rare.
Exactly. 100%. Jake, I said that was the first of two different reward cards. This is another one, Supreme Verdict. This is an RC reward. You've got a card here that, again, the best performers all got a copy of this. This was not the just participant promo. This was the You Did Well promo. And then the foil versions were for the You Did the Best crowd within that crowd. This is a very cool copy of a very playable card. My only complaint about this card, because I love this one, and this is, I want to get like 1 or 2 copies, so I've just got, when I want to run Supreme Verdict, I've got this version to run.
I didn't even know this card exists.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
and that's
I'm surprised today to see it on
the
list, and then I'm like looking at it and I'm like, oh, that's cool. And then I'm like, wait a minute, this is a video about $5 pickups.
Yeah.
So Joel, you found something good here, and this is a really good card.
Yeah. This one was a cool find. I was excited when I found it. My only complaint about it is that it doesn't really look like a blue and white card itself. And so when I'm eyeballing it, I'm not going, that's going into my blue-white deck. But that's such a minor complaint in the variant era that, it's almost nothing. Because like I said, this will be my version of Supreme Verdict going forward.
This kind of gives me a vibe of like the meteor that came and hit the earth and destroyed all the dinosaurs.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of like the vibe that I'm getting from this, is like it feels like an ancient world, and when kind of like what the fate of the prehistoric creatures were, it kind of like makes more sense. It's like, oh, this is all of these things that got killed by this giant big board wipe. So I think it kind of works.
It's kind of cool, yeah.
But it does look red-green.
Yeah, it does. When it's got iconic monsters on it, that's a Tali, and that's the Garuda, and that's
probably like Kogla and
the Jeskai like raptor cat thing up in the top right, and I think that turtle Yadaro, I'm not really sure, but it's a cool version. Around $5 for these like you did well and participated versions.
Cool.
LCI Special Guest. Special Guest is a thing now, and I think Special Guest is a set within a set that we're going to need to take frequent look backs at, to however you should say that. Lord Windgrace right now, this is a card that has been expensive, is fun to play. Special Guest version, in my opinion, coolest version outside of the, if you want the cute kitties copy. But these Special Guests being around $5, I think indicate that we're going to get some cool versions of some cards over the next couple of years that might get into good ranges. Lots of good stuff potentially popping up in that Special Guest slot, like Collected Company here. Another one, Jake, that needed a reprint for so long. We've gotten a few reprints in the last few years, and now you've got your Duskmorn Special Guest version for $5. This is a 4 of. People need 4 of this card if they want to play it a lot of times.
Yeah, if you're playing like Constructed Coco, then you want this card. But this is a fine commander card as well. If you're running a bunch of low cost creatures, then it's probably worth considering.
Yeah,
for sure.
Absolutely. I've been a big fan of the Special Guest slots. And then also
Danny Pink.
Yeah, I mean, it's Danny Pink. I don't know anything about Doctor Who, and so this is just some dude to me. But Danny with +1/+1 counters, any kind of counters really. Creatures you control have whenever one or more counters are put on this creature for the first time each turn, draw a card. Y'all, this card keeps getting built into decks. I'll put it that way. I'm not ever actively seeking out putting the Doctor Who cards into my decks because it's just not an IP I care anything about or connect to at all. Don't know these characters. That's just a dude. But Danny Pink has been the dude in the +1/+1 counter deck that I've been playing a lot recently, and it just says more counters, not more +1 counters or a specific type. It's any counters. So I think that this is one where those legends with names from IPs, more difficult to reprint overall.
I think you could put this guy anywhere. Put him in like Merfolk, Hawkball, where things are exploring and they're getting counters from that.
God.
You can put him pretty much anywhere with any sort of kind of counter synergy, even if he's not that kindred creature type or, whatever. I think that's why we're seeing him pop up more, because he has the mentor built in, so he's able to do it himself. He's his own draw engine. Yeah, I think that this card is really interesting. And we have to look at these sets. Even if you weren't super hyped on Doctor Who, sometimes there's going to be cards in these sets that are just very good, and you just have to kind of, deal with it and play something that might not aesthetically be like what you're looking for. No shade on Danny here, but yeah, I mean, I'm not super high on a lot of the Doctor Who cards. A few of them are pretty good, and this is one of them.
Yep. It absolutely is. If you've seen your name scrolling here in between us, that means you're supporting us over on Patreon at the $10 level or higher. That also means you got a free set of custom dragon shields with our Jake and Joel art on them for free. You just got to go join over at that level on our Patreon. Thank you to everybody who is currently scrolling between us.
And also, we love you. And also to all of our longtime viewers and subscribers, we appreciate you all so much. Thank you for taking your time and spending your time with us.
Okay, bye.